Hey, what's up, everybody? BDF 44 coming up with another video. All right, so it's like midnight, and I went to sleep meditating. You know, I don't even remember exactly the specifics of what I was meditating, but I was asking for the Lord to help me understand some things or what have you. And my dream that I just had, I did not want to wait until tomorrow to talk about it because I thought it was a very relatable situation that I felt like I was experiencing in the dream. So I'll try to give you the best of it I can. First of all, the situation was me living in a certain situation like this, where I'm homeless, but not quite experiencing homelessness the way someone on the street would. I had somebody who was allowing me to stay in their unit, open unit, under the table, more or less. In other words, I was staying in somebody's house, someone's apartment, illegally in this dream. And make a long story short, there was someone, I don't know who it was, an elderly lady who got a understanding of that. And it was a big, huge ordeal that lasted several days of me trying my very best to sneak around and live in this place. And it was a whole lot of stuff that came with that. I don't exactly remember the details of it, but it finally came around to me being able to get caught doing so, but not getting in trouble for it, nor did the person who was allowing me to do it got in trouble for it. But there was this one elderly lady who understood the whole thing. We were able to get away with it, but she had details about the circumstance that would ultimately incriminate me as it pertains to getting me kicked out of that situation. And for whatever reason, after the ordeal reached its peak, and I don't remember exactly how that came about, but I found myself being able to sigh, relax, and relief, praise God for letting me do this. And then I felt, as we were doing, it was like this, it felt like a hostel-like situation. Not, when I say hostel, I mean like literally a living situation with a hostel, because I spent the night at a place like that about 2 months ago, so that's why I liken it to where everybody who had lived in the place was coming to eat together. And I guess it looked like a buffet line that we were standing in near a pool area. It was very, very distinctive at night. The whole vibe was something that almost felt like me spending the night at that hostel at one time. And so everybody's getting their food. I'm going toward certain dishes, holding my plate. You know how that whole buffet line vibe is. And from across the pool area, I felt eyes staring at me. And I looked over, and it was that old elderly lady. And I don't know how she did it, but I don't know if she said to me in front of everyone else, either she outed my situation as it pertains to me living there or something of that nature. But I found myself screaming over to her, not necessarily screaming, but projecting my voice in a loud way with a whole lot of anger in my spirit. And I was talking to her in a way that wasn't like my own character. I was blowing up at her for more or less snitching on me to everybody in regards to my situation. Now, mind you, I'm technically in the wrong, but I need to be in this wrong, so to speak, based on how I was viewing my situation. Obviously, you take onus for being in your situation, but you know what I mean? I felt like I was outside. It was outside of my control, and I was getting away with this, and I was thankful. Here she is going to blow it up. So, to make a long story short, my anger and my frustration with her ended up making it so that I was a less desirable person to be around. And after the whole blow up, I found myself still steaming about the interaction. And I'm sitting down to eat after getting my food, and it's like a long table, maybe about 13 people at the table. And I'm sitting there, I'm getting ready to eat, and then I start talking about how she had done whatever she had done and how I felt about it aloud for everybody to listen to, just venting it out. And the person who was sitting to the left of me got up and they walked to another table. And I look around and I read the vibes of the table itself, and everybody's kind of like irritated with my energy as I'm venting about how I'm feeling about the situation. And the guy that went and sat at another table came back around, sat down, and I looked at his arm, and the hairs on his arm were standing straight up. Like you could see it straight up, as if the static from my energy had affected him in such a way that made him so very uncomfortable that he needed to get away, because he could literally feel it permeating off of me, those vibes permeating off of me. And so I'm quiet for a couple seconds, and then I start up again. Urge to just vent came out of me again. And then I heard people like put their plate down, like, God, this food at it again, like, let it go. And I said, man, forget this, man. And I got up and I said, this is why I like being alone. This is why I stay away from people in the first place. It's because they don't understand my anger, nor do they care. They only care about how they're affected by the vibes that come after that anger is expressed. And this ain't making me feel better, and I'm not making others feel better. This is why I stay alone. And I found myself getting up from the table and walking away. And I woke up thinking about how outside of my character, I felt like I was in the dream. I'm not usually the type of person that's going to blow up at anybody. Some of those urges to vent that way, I don't remember the last time I was in a situation like that. I felt like the perspective on those feelings were mine, but foreign to the personality that I actually hold in real life. It was almost like the Lord put me in somebody else's shoes to understand what either they go through, or to fathom the fact that maybe this is an aspect of my personality that I don't know I have. To where if I'm frustrated, I could be so very irritating to others in regards to how I affect them with that frustration. And the perspective it put me in is to see the lead up to a person who affects others with their frustration. How frustrated they may feel that others don't understand them. How futile it feels to be yourself in the presence of others. I remember distinctively in the dream saying, y'all don't know how to let somebody be themselves. This is why I stay to myself, because nobody knows how to let me be myself. Y'all all affected by my frustration, but don't actually feel the lead up to why that frustration is in place, or understand the need for me to let it out in order to feel better. Y'all just care about how y'all feel. And I remember thinking to myself as I said that, nor do you care how you make them feel. And why is it their burden to place all of that on them? And so it was just a perspective. I felt privy to the idea of how frustration can manifest in others, especially those who have such strong spirits that they affect other people in the way that I described. It was 3 or 4 days of buildup that ultimately I felt privy to within on the inside of myself, to where when that lady finally looked over at me and did however she provoked me, it was like 4 days of frustration all blown up at once, pointed at her, for which I felt wronged. And regardless of whether or not in real life, the way I would view it would be for the person who holds that frustration to have some accountability within the present moment of that blow up and those urges that made me otherwise blow up. All I could feel was the desire to let that energy out of me, only for it to land on people I did not want to affect. And then from there, for that energy to make me feel unwanted as it landed on them. for me to then see how my vibes frustrated them, made them feel uncomfortable, ruined their vibes, which wasn't ruined without my presence, and then to only want to further fall into isolation based on not being understood. And I realized my friend Kay had told me something about like that in regards to why she stays away from people. And I remembered that I had meditated this night before going to sleep, thinking about her. And of course, wanting to further speak about what I had experienced in therapy, for which the video was still uploading because we're having uploading issues. But I told y'all how a lot of what was talked about today was about her and trying to more or less cope with my sense of what our distance is and how I view it within my space. And I remember one of the most important things that she said alluded to what it is that the experience was in the dream. She felt like when she's unhappy, she brings down the mood of others as if she's a killjoy. And that makes her want to stay away. Sometimes she doesn't like to explain herself because people don't get it anyway. She just feel like she should stay away to begin with. She's alluded to that more than once, to where she doesn't feel like she can bring out the best in others when she's down, so she just stays away entirely. She feels like others can't have a good time around her when she's feeling that way. And I felt like maybe the Lord was giving me a peek into how she felt once again, as he did many months ago. I felt, anyway, when I described to you guys about another dream where I felt like more or less I was overwhelmed by something. And it alluded to why someone from a first person perspective would want to stay away. I felt like the Lord was giving me some insight into how maybe she deals with certain things and feels like others are affected but don't understand. All they see is the worst of it, but they don't get how it actually builds up and how righteously provoked she may feel she is in certain situations. Because I tell you the truth, I don't feel like I have some of the traits that I had in those dreams. I pride myself on being very self-conscious. But some of the urges that came with those feelings in the dream, I don't know that I can relate to in the presence of my own personality. I'm less to challenge others or find myself in circumstances where I'm blaming others for their feelings toward me as it pertains to that older lady. And I don't know that I would ever find myself in that situation, because I think I handle certain things differently to where I probably don't even get in that space. You know what I mean? But in my dream, that part of my responsibility to self was not there in such a way to allow me to fall into that space and feel like I had a justified reason for blowing up at that lady, a justified reason for lashing out into the open air, affecting the people around me, and then from there, a lack of appreciation for the fact that I'm hurting the mood of others as I'm venting that in frustration to whomever would be next to me. And that then put me in a space to ultimately feel like being alone is the only space from which to find true understanding, because no one otherwise would. It just felt like it was a lot of aspects of my personality that were shut off so that I could feel that, so that I could relate to that in this dream. And the only thing I could think about was the fact that she had said something that alluded to that in its own way many, many weeks ago. We were discussing why she stayed away. It just boiled down to her feeling like she affected others negatively when she's down. And it put me in a space where I was doing that very thing. That frustration, that lead up to that frustration, it was boiling. that anger or that vitriol pointed at that specific person, it had been sitting there for a matter of days in regards to various different things that person had done that were unspoken but yet frustrated me. Not to say that I remember exactly what they were, but I just know that that's what it was. We had already had bad vibes, me and that elderly lady. We already knew that we didn't like one another. Maybe the room didn't know, but as soon as I saw her, I'm like, this person again. And not so kind words. And when she opened her mouth, that's what provoked all of those bad vibes. And I could not keep my mouth shut. And I felt like that was an attack on my spirit to ultimately drive me to feel uncomfortable, make others feel uncomfortable, and thus drive me into a space where I would be by myself to further not get better at this aspect of my personality. So that's what I wanted to share with you guys. I don't know if anybody can relate to that, but the one thing I can tell you is I understand the lead up to your blow up. I understand the frustration of people not understanding why it's so not only important, but maybe not even within your control that you lash out and let some of that out. I understand that there's also aspects about that you should be more empathetic about in regards to how you affect others with your bad vibes. You are such a strong spirit. You can't just let everything out, and most importantly, you can't allow yourself to allow that lead up to build up in such a way that blows you up, because at the end of the day, the enemy, and we speak of the enemy a lot in spiritual terms, is always going to want to bring out the worst in you to affect others. He's always going to want to make you blow up on others and put you in a space where you can't see that maybe someone may be able to understand where you're coming from, or may even have that same trait. What you don't want to do is be that provoker for them that ends up changing their spirit in some way. We all have responsibility to our own energy, and most importantly, we need to understand that we have responsibility to others' energy just the same. So respect the lead up, meditate, concentrate on where you can be better, concentrate on understanding that someone, even if you can't see that they understand where you're coming from, may understand where you're coming from, and just the same may be frustrated by you being provoked, and then therefore dumping those energies out on them. Just because they don't appear to understand it or don't appear to want to capitulate to you in that moment does not mean that they don't get you and that you need to drive yourself into isolation based on your perception of not being understood. You may be understood. It just may be incumbent upon you to understand just the same how you affect others and how to control that so that you don't furthermore make them feel worse. I think that there's a lot to be said for being better, even when provoked to be worse. And if everybody did that, there would be less provocation and more patience. So that's pretty much what I want to say about that, man. I appreciate the perspective that dream gave me. Most of my dreams lately have been character challenging and perspective gaining over the last couple of weeks. And I thought that this one was one of the more poignant ones that didn't need to wait till morning to kind of provide the lesson necessary. And since it takes so long for these videos to upload, I think it has something to do with the storm. I figured I might as well put this one out in the late night, hopefully to be available to you in the morning. So that's pretty much what I got to say. My name is BDF 44. I thank y'all for watching. I'm out.